Senate will come to order. Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. President, there's a message from the House.
Admit the messenger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am directed by the House to inform the Senate that the House has taken a vote.
Thank you. Pursuant to a previously adopted motion, the Senate stands adjourned until 7 p.m. Thursday, August 21st. Thank you. Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall, Hinojosa Nueces, Hinojosa Hidalgo, Huffman, Hughes, Johnson, King, Colcourse, Menendez, Middleton, Miles, Nichols, Parker, Paxton, Perry, Schwartner, Sparks, West, Zaffarini.
Members, the quorum is present. Would everyone in the gallery please rise, and on the floor please rise for the invocation by Senator Charles Schwartner.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we pause in this chamber to acknowledge your presence and your goodness. We thank you for the blessing of family, for the loved ones who strengthen us, encourage us, and remind us of what truly matters. Tonight, we ask a special blessing over those who have recently lost family, so that they might find peace and a path forward with your help and guiding light. As we approach the final days of this legislative special session, we ask for your wisdom and your guidance. Grant us steady minds, humble hearts, and clear vision to discern what is right and just. May every decision we make honor you and bless those we represent. We are grateful for all the work that has been accomplished and for the opportunities you have given us to serve the people of Texas. Lord, we pray the words bestowed upon your servant Moses from the book of Numbers over this body and gallery. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Schwartner. You may be seated. The Dean of the Senate moves to excuse Senator Paxton on matters of important family business. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. The Dean of the Senate moves to excuse Senator Menendez on important family medical matters. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. The Dean of the Senate also moves to dispense the reading of yesterday's journal. Any objections? Hearing none, motion is adopted. The following message from the governor, the secretary will read the message.
Message. To the Senate and House of Representatives of the 89th Texas Legislature, second called session, Whereas the people of Texas, through their state constitution, have placed in the hands of the governor the power to call and set the agenda for special sessions of the legislature. And whereas, pursuant to a gubernatorial proclamation issued on August 15, 2025, the members of the 89th Legislature convened in a second call session to consider the subjects designated in that proclamation. Now, therefore, I, Greg Abbott, Governor of the State of Texas, by the authority vested in me by Article 3, Section 40, and Article 4, Section 8A of the Texas Constitution, do hereby present the following additional subjects to the 89th Legislature second call session for consideration. Legislation to impose penalties or punishments for legislators who willfully absent themselves during a session. Legislation to authorize a person to purchase ivermectin at a pharmacy. Legislation relating to a groundwater study of East Texas aquifers by the Texas Water Development Board prior to the issuance of permits or permit amendments by certain groundwater conservation districts. Respectfully submitted, Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas.
Members, if no objection, I'd like to postpone the reading and referral of bills until the end of today's calendar and resolutions. Any objection? Hearing none. So ordered. Members, that concludes the morning call. Before we begin, I want to address the family members who are with us. We're honored to have you here with us. And I will tell you, in the 17 years I've been in this body, 8 years as senator and 10 years as lieutenant governor, we've had many days on this floor where we've had heavy hearts of things that have happened in the state of Texas. I can tell you that on a bipartisan basis, the members of this floor and this Senate are here to take action so that this never happens again. Our words will never be enough, but our commitment to the 27 families, we hope, will be the best we can do in these difficult times to help you move down a path that's forward. And we will always be linked with you. And this story will never end. And as you need us, all 31 members will be here. They will be here for you. So thank you for being with us tonight. I know it's a very difficult night for you, but we're going to take action tonight based on your recommendations in Senate Bill 1 to help prevent this from ever happening again. So thank you for being with us. Senator Perry, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. SB 1 or Senate Bill 1. The bill name is the Heavens 27 Camp Safety Act. As you know, our state suffered horrific historic flash flooding in Central and West Texas last month that resulted in a tragic loss of 138 lives. In the aftermath, we formed select committees to ascertain the facts of the disaster and identify policy solutions that would help prevent loss of life due to flash flooding and other natural disasters in the future. Since July 23rd, we convened multiple hearings, taking over 30 hours of invited and public testimony to roughly 100 witnesses. Additionally, many of us have met with the Heavens 27 families privately and heard their testimony from many of them the last few days. Many of those family members will be joining us or are joining us in the gallery today, and some are looking online. And I want to thank them tonight for being here presently or online and watching this proceedings. Senate Bill 1 is Heavens 27 Camp Safety Act, named in honor of the 25 girls and 2 young ladies who tragically lost their lives at Camp Mystic on July 4th. This bill answers to the deficiencies in campground safety that we've learned so much about in the last few weeks. Specifically, the bill did a couple of big things. One, it addressed youth camp safety as well as all camp safeties. It's the first time those areas of code have been touched in a great long time in a very significant way. To better prepare for all campgrounds, including youth camps, for natural disaster, SB 1 is filed, implements basic camp safety requirements, and these requirements include a few of these: installing emergency rooftop egress ladders for cabins located in floodplains, developing an emergency plan that addresses safety floods in campers of all types of natural disasters, flash floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, implementing the applicable portions of the emergency plan during the type of natural disaster, providing a copy of the emergency plan to local emergency management coordinators, and implementing basic fire standards. All of these provisions, including the next ones for youth camp, will dovetail well with the disaster and preparedness bill and the funding that we have already approved through this legislature. To better prepare youth camp specifically for emergencies in SB 1, as filed, implements heightened requirements applicable only to youth camps. These requirements generally prohibit dishes from licensing youth camps against the local to locate cabins in a floodplain, with the exception of camps on an isolated or flood control lake. Requires youth camps to renew their dishes license anytime they construct new campuses or renovate existing campuses, such as adding new cabins or new beds. Incorporating additional scenarios into emergency planning requirements for lost campers, structured fires, severe injuries, illnesses, fatalities suffered by campers, or aquatic emergencies such as drownings. Establishing procedures for identifying and accounting for campers during emergencies. Establishing procedures to notify local emergency services, appropriate camp personnel, and parents or guardians of campers of an emergency. Designating an emergency preparedness coordinator for each youth camp. Maintaining operable weather alert radios. Installing emergency warning systems, public address systems in youth camps, monitoring for local weather alerts, providing a copy of the emergency plan to the Department of State Health Services, which must maintain a database of all such emergency plans that is accessible to Texas Division of Emergency Management, or TDEM, providing a copy of an emergency plan to the parents or legal guardian of each camper, notifying parents and guardians of each camper if the portion of the youth camp is located in the floodplain, conducting safety orientations for campers at the beginning of each camp session that include training campers on their roles in an emergency plan, conducting an annual training on emergency planning for each camp staff and volunteer, posting each cabin the evacuations applicable routes to each cabin in a lit format, keep all evacuation routes lit at night. Additionally, SB 1 requires dishes to post, update, and maintain a website of a list of youth camps in the states with active licenses from dishes, and repeals outdated extraneous procedural requirements for dish rulemaking applicable only to youth camps in order to speed up the implementation of SB 1. I will have 4 additional amendments cleaning up and making some provisions that have come to light the last couple of days. I will tell you that the parents have went through those amendments with me, and we're not changing anything that they thought was necessary to achieve what their objective was. Some of it's cleanup, and some of it accommodates a particular area or two of the state that where flash flooding is not an issue, and it would have shut down camps unnecessarily. I want to express my appreciation to the Select Committee, to all of their staff, and my staff specifically, Andrew Parks and Jana Grove, and Shannon Harmon, Chief, that has put a lot of energy and effort and coordination in making sure this comes to fruition tonight. Most importantly, I want to thank Heaven's 27 families for the strength you have shown all of us over the last few weeks by being united, organizing, and advocating so effectively for reforms in honor of your daughters. I hope you know that all of you are and will remain in our thoughts and prayers. We do hope that the work we have accomplished together brings some comfort for you with the knowledge that reforms that came from the tragic loss of your daughters will save countless lives in the future. Members, during testimony yesterday, one of the parents reminded me of a verse, and it's so true, not only for this bill, but for a lot of bills that we take on. And it was so appropriate, I thought I would go ahead and remind people of what our role here is in legislatures. There's not many things we need to do. Basic infrastructure, fund our schools, take care of some health care, and public safety. That's one that sometimes we just think we just have on autopilot. Ezekiel 33, 6-7 But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, so that the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any one of them, that person is a takeaway in his iniquity, and the blood will require the watchman's hands. Nevertheless, if you warn and the wicked turn from his way, and he does not turn away from it, he shall die in iniquity, but you'll have delivered your soul. We have a role as legislatures, to the best of our abilities, protecting liberty at all costs in all cases where it's necessary, to protect our citizens from things that will harm them, and we know that will. I think SB 1 is a great reminder of our role as a watchman, no different than many, and even this special legislation 1 and 2. Bills on that we it basically changes. The most significant provision inside of SB 1 is you can't have dormitories or kids sleeping in a 100-year floodplain. Most importantly, I believe that's immediate impact today is at flash flood warning, which is second stage notice, you're required to shelter to higher ground. And that will be a pre-drilled, pre-designated, pre-positioned. At second level, you've got, on average, I'm told, 3 hours to react if there's an actual flood emergency. So it's a time issue. Minutes matter. But I've taken all the subjective conversations, all the politics out of making a decision to move to higher ground and put it tied to a well-known, established flash flood warning or flood warning stage acknowledgement by NWS, our National Weather Service, that you immediately have no other decision to make but to go get the kids and take them to higher ground.
Now, we also know that that 3-hour period could be followed by some number of minutes of warning if we had a flood warning system that could see a gauge rise and do an automatic siren recall, that floodplain itself but I think that
The second level of warning.
are worth your own.
For ensure the Delta is over in other camps, which RV parks and stuff. We've addressed both codes in SB1. So RV parks will have a plan on, but we've accommodated to the best we can enough direction and enough requirements that we believe we've made their world a little bit better and a little bit safer, and hopefully done it efficiently as possible.
And
Best we can, enough direction and enough requirements that we believe we've made their world a little bit better and a little bit safer, and hopefully done it efficiently as possible.
And complacency, as Senator Colcor said, was an issue that we heard over and over again, and it will no longer be tolerated. And with this bill, I think that in the future, there will be safe spaces again. Because one of the things that impressed me so greatly about all the families was they all said that they didn't want camping to end, Mr. President. They wanted it to continue. And even though, despite this horrific loss of life that they suffered, they want camping to continue, members. And it's because at heart, they know that that is Texas values, it's American values, it's what we all hope that our kids can do without an issue. I'm proud to have been part of this committee, signed by Lieutenant Governor Patrick, proud to have been part of being part of this process, but will be saddened for the rest of my life of what I heard yesterday. But it just makes me resolute to make sure it never happens again. Thank you for your leadership, Senator Perry.
Thanks, Senator Betancourt.
Thank you, Senator Betancourt. I know that, Senator Perry, it's almost become a saying now, turn around, don't drown, to keep cars from going through low-level water. We should begin to adopt the saying of up, not out, because you can't outrun the water. And everyone needs to be up. Everyone needs to be up. And I know that's the major part of the bill. Senator West, for what purpose?
Question of the author.
Do you yield?
I yield.
You're recognized.
Senator Perry and the members of the committee, great work. You know, as I was coming to the Capitol today, I could only reflect on some of the tough decisions that we've had to make on this floor, some of the tragedies that we've had to review, make certain that there was policy to address it. Uvalde, as an example, where we lost angels, babies. In terms of the flood, we have lost angels, babies, parents that will grieve forever. It's not lost on members of this body. Where you see, you have parents here on this floor that have also lost kids. I'm one of them. Senator King is another, and others. So we know how you feel. We know your grief. And we know that it'll be something that you'll live with forever, as with the kids in Uvalde. What we do is to make certain the committees that were appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, that we do everything in our power to make certain that incidents like this never happen again. Incidents in Uvalde never happen again. And that's what this committee has done. They've set standards of care that should be observed by anyone in the state of Texas that's operating at camp. Common sense policy by each and every camp. I can only imagine. No, I can't imagine. You didn't take your children to camp with an expectation that you'd never see them again. Kids didn't go to school in Uvalde with an expectation that their parents wouldn't see them again. We stand here, sometimes divided on issues that we shouldn't be divided on, but I can assure each and every one of you, Senator Perry, I want to thank you and the members of the committee. We stand here as a united Senate, wanting to make certain the children weren't lost in vain. They will be remembered, as we remember the kids in Uvalde, and other tragedies that have happened in this state. Be assured that the work done by you, Senator Perry, and other members of the committee, we thank you for it. We stand together with you on it. I have one question that I want to ask. In terms of making certain that the policies at dishes, correct?
Correct.
Now, is there going to be a requirement for these various camps to make sure they review these policies and update them on a regular basis?
Dishes will have additional funding to meet, I believe, 13 FTEs that will, from what they have told us, give us the manpower to make sure, they always had an annual inspection. It was more sanitation, that the sewers were worked, where the food going to be hot and cold. So we've just expanded that role now regarding their evacuation plan. So to answer your question, I believe we've given them the resource and the direction and the mandate that they will have that plan and reviewed
On an
annual basis.
On an annual basis.
And they are currently on an annual basis. It was just not very prescriptive on what expectations were with regarding disaster preparedness.
The other question I have, and I think you may have answered it, as it relates to the parents, making certain that the parents get what the plans are.
Parents have access to the plans, subject to who is the guardian of record when they registered. So that's was a conversation piece, right? And in the world we live in, sometimes families aren't really whole, right? So one of them may be on the outs. So it's whoever has registered the child will have access upon request to that plan.
I just want to say, job well done.
No problem.
To you and
Thank
the
you.
committee.
Thank you, Senator West. Senator Colcourse, before I say for what purpose, I know that you've been working on this issue before these events, and you were a major contributor to Senate Bill 1, and I thank you for that work. For what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask the author, thank you for your kind words there. I rise to ask the author some questions.
I yield, and I do second your contributions to this area. Serving with Vice Chair, as Madam Chair of the HHSC, this is your bailiwick on some level on the codes. And some of the things you had suggestions are very much appreciated and made the bill better with that experience. Plus you had, unfortunately, a personal connection to one of the families, and I knew you were very active in that. So that made it a little bit harder for you, but definitely a lot more real.
Thank you. This notebook, I started on 7/23/25 at our first hearing, and contains all the notes from those hearings and the notes from a private meeting that we had with the parents. Mr. President, I think you would ask a smaller group to meet with the parents, and so Senator Perry, Senator Flores, myself, Chairman King, and 2 other House members that we met early this week. And I just kind of want to, I always say you mumble through big bills, and I appreciate that. When Senator Perry's mumbling, it's really big stuff. I'm much more bold in some of my statements, so I want to tease out of you some major pillars of this bill. It was in Kerrville, the first panel that was presenting to us, which were all the Kerr County officials. There were many questions by many members from the House, our colleagues from the House, very good questions, and then colleagues from senators. And one of the things that I asked was of the Emergency Management Coordinator. I asked the question, how many evacuation plans do you have access to in Kerr County? And he said, his answer was, there are 19 counties in this county, and I have 6 on file. I left the dais, went to the Lieutenant Governor's staffer, because there were so many people in that room, members, that our Wi-Fi wasn't downloading, and I was trying to download the health and safety code. And Andrew Franco actually had it printed for me, thank you very much. And in looking at that, it began kind of a process before we had heard from the families. So in Senate Bill 1, not only do we require the plans for evacuation, but we also require that they are filed with the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
Senator West, to your question about where are those plans, how do we get access to those? We went through kind of a series of questions. Actually, a parent from Camp La Junta asked me, can you put that on the website so we can see it? For safety reasons, that's a bad idea. And I've told that parent that because as Senator Perry says, we live in a fallen world and there are people that want to do bad things. But those plans will be accessible by the parents. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I want to just give a couple of quotes to let our parents know that we heard you. And as I said yesterday, we can't unhear your stories, nor Senator West should we ever unhear those stories. If I could for just a second. To my constituents, to Lacey and to Lars. Lacey, your quote was, meaningful safeguards and enforceable safeguards. That was your quote. Senator Perry, do we have that in Senate Bill 1?
I believe we've nailed it. I think the hearings reiterated that.
Lars, in this order, you said safety first, happiness second, in that order. Senator Perry, do we have that in Senate Bill 1?
We got that.
And Lars, you said something else, and I told you a personal story. I've really had a long talk with my family. You're an Eagle Scout. And in our private meeting, and then again in the hearing just yesterday, you said, be prepared. Be prepared. That's what you're taught as an Eagle Scout. And you said, all organizations must be prepared for all emergencies. What a great lesson for not just youth camps. But as a lady in Kerr County said, she'd lived there for 67 years, and her quote was, I've seen 25 floods, and this community had become complacent. But Mother Nature taught us who's still in charge. So Senator Perry, along the lines with Lars, or to Brant Dillon, who said this was 100% predictable, and he gave the scripture. Do you believe that this helps all camps be better prepared?
All camps, youth camps and non-youth camps, will have a requirement that they have an active, drilled, prepared, distributed evacuation plan. I cannot imagine, unless it's a 10,000-year NOAA event, to where it could get higher than anything ever imagined, that we will not have kids out of harm's way after SB 1 is implemented.
Mr. President, you and I have had talks about higher ground. Seek higher ground to our counselors who followed our heroes, who followed instruction, and they sheltered in place. This bill will address that.
You know, seek higher ground applies to everything in addition to flooding, correctly? We have to take the high road. I think to the flood specifically. It enforces, it mandates, it requires, and I qualified this yesterday. This bill is a bunch of words on paper, and there's enforcement attached to it. It's only as good as the people in charge of implementing it. And so it requires watchmen. Dishes is our watch source. If Dishes comes back to us after this next camping season has started and reports that we had non-compliance of X, there will be a retribution from the legislator. Me personally, everybody on this floor. We will hold these folks accountable. And so, to our humanly possible, the things that are humanly possible, we have given clarity and we've been very prescriptive on requirements that are not optional but mandated. And then we've put enforcement with it, loss of licensure. And we can go as far as we have to. But I will be extremely disappointed, but honestly, I would be shocked if we have non-compliance April 1st of next year.
As Ben Landry said yesterday, no emergency plans and training is not acceptable. Correct, Senator? Years of neglect and complacency. That is the one thing I kept hearing yesterday over and over and over. And then finally to Matthew Childress and Chloe in her memory. In Senate Bill 1, there will be clear training for those counselors.
Those counselors will have to be drilled, have to be aware of where the evacuation plan is or shelter to a higher place. And I'll give you a good example. One of the camps had something they referred to as maintenance road. Everybody knew that that was the highest piece of property on the campsite. And they had no fatalities. Now I can argue.
To the muster.
It's effectively a muster. Now they didn't practice, and then they didn't have a plan that said you go there in the event, but they just knew, they got the word out, head to maintenance road. So everybody knew what the maintenance road. So it's just not that difficult. It's common sense stuff. Now I would argue that camp was awfully, they say blessed, and I would agree, by the grace of God. They could have been having the same conversation, unfortunately, in the outcomes these parents have. But just something as simple as knowing where the highest part is and having time to get the kids there, and someone that's on duty, that's the watchman of the day, fulfilling the obligation to do it, it solved all our problems. And I think, unfortunately, the attention is very strong today. But if we're not certain that parents aren't engaged, we didn't see an evacuation plan. I asked my daughter when she came back from camp 2 years from now, and they didn't do a muster drill. They didn't take them to a place. They didn't show them what to do. Or you talk to the counselor when she comes home after 60, 90 days. Hey, did they train you on evacuation plans? And if the response is a resounding no, the parents' role, as Lieutenant Governor said, didn't stop today because they're the only thing we know as an independent verification source that what we said gets done actually gets done, because on an annual check, they can tell you anything. But I promise you today, the camps need to hear me loud and clear. We anticipate and expect and require parental involvement to follow up. That my kid was at camp for 4 weeks, and not once did they ever go to a higher ground. And it's when you close the loop, right? If we go 3/4 of the way and think all the state's done its job, but then the camps sneak by or get complacent, or human nature being what it is, forgot, whatever, the parents have to have an obligation to talk to their kids and find out, did y'all have a training? Did y'all do a drill? And if the answer is no, maybe another parent who verifies that, because some kid may have had a drill and not even knew it was a drill. But somewhere in this mix, the only way to test what we expected to get done is have a conversation with the kids. And the parents have to be that engaged. And I promise you, if the parents are even a quarter of what this crew is, this 27, this unity, we won't have any problems keeping our kids safe going forward.
Amen. My final question is yesterday.
No, you had
on
the final
panel.
question, we'll go.
I take those liberties.
I'm teasing. I'm messing with you.
the final panel was of camp owners, and Camp Longhorn and La Junta were on the panel. And I asked Johnny Robertson the question of, this is a minimum. This is in writing a minimum. Can they do more? And the answer to that is absolutely, correct?
That was correct.
And I want to challenge all camps to take notes, sit up, read this bill, go and summer camps are over. Get out there, make your camps better and safer. You agree, Senator Perry?
I agree. And, Longhorn was interesting. They have a little different arrangement. They have kind of a still lake. But when we asked him, what do you do when you get notice of a flood event? He said, we moved to higher ground.
He answered it right.
He didn't need a bill.
I'll end it with this. Last night I was able to go back to Brenham, Texas in Washington County, not far from Belleville. And I got home right in time for the sunset. And I sat on the porch with Jimmy, and he asked me some questions. And I will never apologize for my emotions, ever. And if you can't shed a tear with these 27 parents, you probably need to get out of this job. So I shed a couple of other tears. And then I looked to that sunset, Lars and Lacey. And you're not going to believe this. But as the sun went down in beautiful pink sunset, one of the clouds formed a perfect V. Barefoot in my dress, I ran down to the lake, and I took that picture, and I'm going to share it with you. And as I walked back, barefoot in the pasture, I looked back over my shoulder, and the V was no longer there. And I just feel like Virginia just gave me a wink and a nod as I played over and over in my head the song that she had composed. To all of you, we mourn with you and we share our love with you. And as the Lieutenant Governor said, I'll speak for all 31 of us. We'll be there for you. God bless you all. And as Senator Schwertner said in his prayer, may God's peace be with you.
Thank you, Senator Colcourse. Senator Parker, for what purpose?
Mr. President, I have a question for the author.
Do you yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Senator Perry. First of all, we're all indebted to you for the incredible job you've done with this bill. Your leadership has been extraordinary. I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the members of the committee. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor, but most of all, I want to thank all the families that have given their time and their input into this process to make this bill what it is. And I think we have crafted something that is truly exceptional. And it also, at the same time, is so applicable what you said a moment ago, Senator, which is it's just words on paper, this bill. But the commitment I know that all 31 of us have, and the Lieutenant Governor, our colleagues in the other chamber and the House, is to do this with heart and with fidelity because it's personal to all of us. Isn't that right, Senator Perry?
That is correct.
And so it'll be our zeal and our passion as a legislative body to make certain that what we have put, those words on paper, will be implemented with fidelity to make certain that this never happens again. Isn't that right, Senator?
That's the goal.
As extraordinary as this bill is, we still are in recovery mode. We still have a precious baby girl that is still missing tonight, here at 8 o'clock. That baby girl, Seal Stewart, is still missing. I want the people of Texas to know, and most importantly, that family, that we will do everything in our power. We'll deploy every asset, every resource, every capability to continue to find that little girl, and we will do so until we bring her home to her family. Senator Perry, do you agree with that?
I agree, and we have that commitment at every level of this state.
And that's why I'm so proud of the fact that as Texans, we take care of Texans. We come together in these difficult times, and I know that every member in law enforcement, every first responder, every citizen, rank and file citizen, is continuing that search and will until we bring Seal home. That's our commitment to that family, to the 27 precious families that have lost what matters most in this world. And I want to thank you again for your leadership. I want to thank the families. I want to thank you, Governor, because we will never forget the memories of any of these precious children, and we'll continue to fight until we find Seal. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Parker.
Thank you, Senator Parker. The motion is on suspension of the regular order of business. Any objection? Hearing none. Chair now lays out committee substitute for Senate Bill 1. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1, relating to campground and youth camp safety.
We have an amendment, members. The following amendment, Secretary will read.
Floor amendment number 1 by Perry.
Senator Perry, on your amendment.
Yeah, let me match them up to mine. Did you put them in the same order, Kobe? Perfect. Members, amendment number 1 adds an exception to the licensure to prohibition by which a youth camp may be licensed with cabins within a 100-year frame if the cabins are at least 1,000 feet from the floodway. This came up a little bit yesterday. Actually, it was kind of on the front burner early on about a different kind of flood event, if you will. And then on the House floor today, it was made very clear there was concerns that on coastal camps, they're pretty low sea level, but they very seldom have flash flood. They don't have a terrain that can force the water, the velocity. You know, at the Guadalupe, it's a very narrow canyon. That water accumulates and it comes down at a very high pace. This is basically making allowances for camps that are in coastal areas specifically for the most part, but there are some other applications around where a likelihood of a flash flood is nearly zero. But had we left the bill in its original form, would have literally closed those camps down. So, and the parents and I had visited, and they are in agreement that this makes sense. You know, to the parents' credit, they even reiterated today, we're not in the business of closing camps down. But Texas is huge geographically, and we can't usually fit a one-size-fits-all in most things, and that was reminded of that today. So this is addressing those coastal camps that typically would never, ever have a flash flood event. If there's an event in the coastal region, it will typically be a named storm of some sort, and they would be long gone before that ever came in. So this accommodates those camps that were very concerned about original language closing them down. With that, I move adoption.
I think there was an amendment out of order here.
Okay.
So we're passing out the correct amendment now.
All right.
So everyone will have it.
So that is, well, actually, no, I believe the first one was good. So. Yeah.
Senator Perry, would you read the draft number for the one you just laid out?
Draft number is 89S20720 KRMD.
Okay, we're good.
You good? I thought we were. Okay.
Any objection? Hearing none, amendment is adopted. Chair lays out the following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 2 by Perry.
Members, the floor amendment number 2 was to allow for still water. So Camp Longhorn was a good example. They are a dammed up still water facility. they don't have flash flood events. They may have a flooding event, but it was already policy for Longhorn. And any of these exemption from licensure requirements still requires them to do the protocols in the event of a flood designation. So basically, if you're a still lake, you're not in a river path, and if it's dammed up, it has a spillway, so you would have plenty and ample time of knowing if there was a, quote, flood water coming at you. Again, the parents and I talked, and we went through the mechanics and the application around the state, so they were agreeable that this exemption, and it would have caused camps to close that just had ponds or lakes on their place. And that's what the amendment is doing, is making that exception. For licensure only, we would not allow someone in a 100-year floodplain with dormitories, kids' sleeping arrangements. Generally, you can't get your license. These are two exceptions to that requirement because of the geography that you have the camp in. You still have to follow the flood protocols and emergency and preparedness during a flood event under the rest of the sections of the bill.
Any objection, members? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Following amendments, Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 3 by Perry.
Yeah, in the original bill, we required a weather radio in every cabin. And to the camp owners' concerns, and I agreed with them, you probably don't want an 18-year-old counselor with a weather radio in their cabin monitoring weather events and trying to make decisions or have anxiety because they don't understand a lot of the jargon. So my initial belief was a weather radio designated to a specific person, a watchman, if you will, that has the obligation and the preparedness and the training to listen to a NOAA weather radio system and then act on it. That's kind of what I envisioned to begin with, and that's where we landed. Having one in every cabin, which typically do have 18-year-old counselors, having a weather radio off going all night for different reasons was probably not the best way to leave the bill. So we're going to have a weather radio requirement, but it will be designated to an emergency preparedness coordinator that has the job of monitoring weather alerts and will be the actionable go-to to cause shelter to higher place. So this just requires at least one. You can have more, but I thought the camps made a good point. There's probably not many 18-year-olds that listen to weather radios, and if they do, they probably won't know what to do with them. It could create chaos. With that, move adoption.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. The following amendment, Secretary will read the amendment.
This is the fourth and last amendment, members.
Hold on 1 second, just for the record. We have to read it into the record.
Floor Amendment number 4 by Perry.
Senator Perry.
Yeah, this is the fourth and last amendment, and it reminds me of how much I'm going to miss Senator Birdwell. He really is a technician, and he pays attention to every word and every comma and every period in a bill. And in his wisdom and very studious way, he comes up to me at 6:50 and says, I got something we need to change. So my first response is, it's 6:50. But to his credit, he worked out the math. So in the original bill, we had a time frame from April 1st plus 90 days to respond to a deficiency in a EVAC bill or plan. Well, if you do the math, that puts kids in the cabin on June 28th under the possibility of having 30 days on premise without a approved EVAC plan. So what this amendment does is it takes the 90 days down to 45 days. It just means dishes is going to have to work a little overtime maybe. But that will definitely give them 2 weeks between May 15th and June 1st when kids show up on camp, a time to reconcile some of those discrepancies or some of those differences in the plan. So this effectively gives 2 weeks before the first kid shows up on June 1st. The way it's originally written, it would actually give 30 days of kid on premise without an approved plan from dishes. So that's what we're doing.
Senator Course, what purpose?
A question to the author.
Do you yield?
I yield.
Excellent amendment. Thank you, Senator Birdwell. Again, a great tactician and study that. To that, I want to ask, as we made these amendments, does Senate Bill 1 negate many of the waivers that have passed over the past years? I went all the way back to 1973.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Waivers.
So the current Health and Human Safety Code has allowed waivers to camps for decades. Some of the waivers may have caused some problems in this last flooding event. There was not even waivers at the state, there was also waivers from FEMA at the federal level. So we corrected the FEMA issue that you can't waiver yourself out of this bill by FEMA, and you can no longer waiver anything. So you're starting fresh. There are no waivers. This is your new playbook, and in the bill it prohibits waivers being granted going forward.
Good. I wanted to clarify that. And I also want to clarify one thing. We've seen a lot of bills, and everybody is wanting to do great things to make sure this tragedy never happens again. Is Senate Bill 1, as amended, like with a great amendment right here, I'd call it the Birdwell-Perry amendment here, specific enough so that the rules by dishes will be like that? I mean, very quick, so that there is no delay. This is a timeline amendment, so I want to make sure, because there were a lot of different things that I've seen moving or being talked about that would give this, and we'll come up with an advisory committee, and it will do this and that and the other. We're going straight to the heart of it.
The absolute understanding and mandate and requirement is the first day of camping season in 26, this will be fully in place and implemented.
Thank you. Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you. And Senator Birdwell, I know you're retiring. One great amendment before you're about to leave. Any objection to the amendment, members? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Senator Perry, you're recognized on passage to engrossment.
Move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. The bill passes to engrossment. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Move to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
There being 28 ayes and no nays, the rule is suspended. The chair now lays out on third reading and final passage committee substitute for Senate Bill 1. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1 relating to campground and youth camp safety.
Before I come to you for final, we have members who'd like to speak on final passage.
And I am going to, at the appropriate time, have all of the parents stand and read each child's name. I want them all to stand in unity. This is a 27 family unified group, and I just want to have that privilege and honor to do that for those. So as soon as everyone's through speaking,
we will do that.
I will do that.
Absolutely. Senator Flores.
To speak on the bill. Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on the Disaster Committee. Senator Perry, I'd like to say thank you very much for your leadership. Members, this was something extremely difficult for the parents, the children that were lost, for the Kerr County and the communities that I represent and that you all represent, 130 plus people that lost their lives over that catastrophic event. But often, when events occur at different levels, we convene committees, we have hearings, and then we don't do anything about it. I've seen that in my career as a first responder time and time again. Input from you all, from the parents, from the communities, the hearings, to be able to listen, not to tell, not to talk, but to listen, results in legislation like we have here tonight. And that's the way how we respond to these catastrophic events, I see, or I would propose to you all, as a measure of who we are as a body, as a state, as a nation. But how we prepare ourselves for what we know is going to happen again. We know there's going to be hurricanes. We know there's going to be tornadoes. We know there's going to be floods and fires. But especially those places that have our most precious treasure with them, our children, should be prepared for it. For it all, for all contingencies. And that's what this bill does. Based on the input, based on what worked and what didn't work. That's what makes this a great piece of legislation. As we move forward, I would hope that we as a body and we as a state continue to be prepared. I would say at our campgrounds, what we have in the Hill Country for generations is a treasure to us. It's great memories that our families have said so themselves. But when they have their children delivered there, it should be safe at all times. We shouldn't think that, oh, well, take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. But we ensure that that is the first priority, that our children are safe, that our citizens are safe, our communities are safe. And this legislation and other legislation that we have before us in this special session will ensure that and enforce that. And we will not be complacent in our enforcement of it either. Because often that happens at times. We get sometimes complacent ourselves and say, well, that was 5 years ago. That was 10 years ago. But to use the words I used in Kerrville, the monster came that night. And it's up to us and up to everyone and all Texans to be prepared for when the monster comes back, so that we can effectively protect our children, our communities, our state against what is surely to come. This bill does that. And for that, I will vote yes on this legislation and will highly support any other legislation that comes forward that protects our children, our communities, our state. Yes, Senator Perry, we are the watchmen. We are. And shame on us if the sword falls upon our citizens. But I stand before you humbly, honored to be a part of this body, that I know every one of us will make sure that we are going to be prepared when the monster returns, and that our Texans will be safe. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Flores. Senator Zaffarini, for what purpose?
To speak in favor of the bill, Mr. President.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and members, I rise in support of Senate Bill 1, which I believe all of us co-authored. 3 counties in my district, members, Southeast Travis County, Caldwell, and Guadalupe County, were impacted by the July 4th flood. Constituents worked with me to develop 5 bills that I filed during this special session. 3 of those bills are included in Senate Bill 1, and 1 was passed by the Senate last week. Senate Bill 1 includes my Senate Bill 22, which constituents recommended, which would codify and strengthen rulemaking by the Texas Department of State Health Services to ensure youth camp operates complete and maintain emergency operation plans. It also would help account for all contingencies, such as lost campers, fires, severe illnesses, and aquatic emergencies, rather than plan only for flooding emergencies. What's more, constituents insisted that we incorporate the National Fire Protection Association 1194, the standard for recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds, which Representative Ryan Guillen and I co-sponsored. Including these measures helps ensure that privately owned campgrounds and RV parks are subject to minimum standards for safety regulations. Thank you, Senator Perry, for including these measures in Senate Bill 1. Thank you, Governor Patrick and committee members, for your excellent work. And above all, thank you to the families who transformed their deep grief and loss into a demonstration of their profound love that resulted in this legislation. It will help ensure that Texans never again will experience a tragedy like this. Those lost in this tragedy will live forever in our hearts and minds. My prayer is that the Lord will bless and strengthen the families who lost loved ones. It is in their name that we will vote for Senate Bill 1. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Eckhart, what purpose?
Speak in favor of this wonderful bill.
You're recognized.
Thank you so much. Actually, Mr. President, I speak in favor of these remarkable families. I was watching you all up there as we laid this bill out. I saw a crying father. I saw a mother holding the hand of a father. I saw friends holding each other up. And I just want to say thank you to you all. Of the Heaven 27, several of the families are neighbors of mine. In your grief, you have achieved remarkable advocacy. Being in grief from a mass tragedy is no club that anyone wants to be in. Thank you for advocating not only for the Heaven 27, but also for every other family who has ever experienced a tragedy like this, and for families in the future who won't have to face what you faced because of what you have made happen here tonight. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Senator Eckhart. Senator Gutierrez, what purpose?
Just to speak in favor of the bill.
You're recognized.
Well, folks, I'm sorry I was late. I didn't mean to be. I was in a federal court proceeding down in Laredo, Texas. But I'm the senator in the counties just south of Kerr and Real and Edwards and Uvalde. And about 3 years ago, I saw a tremendous, horrific tragedy. And I remember the first night showing up in Uvalde. And I remember when parents got this horrible news. And I remember the incredible cries of pain and moaning. And it was something I'd never heard in my life before. I just don't think that anybody expects that they're ever going to lose their child. And so I wanted to tell you there's not a whole much that anybody down here is going to be able to tell you is going to make it all better again, because that's all I ever wanted to do, is try to make things better for my constituents. We'll never be able to bring back your children. But on some level, when resources and things are missing along the way, I think that's what this is an attempt to do, is to try to make sure that those resources don't happen, that are in place, so that this doesn't happen again. And I think you've heard that a lot from a lot of people. And so on some level, we're also so very sorry just for your loss. But for what we haven't done, we always have a lot of work to do. We are not perfect people. We are fallible. And we have a lot of work to do as human beings. And I just wanted to tell you for myself, I got to know all of those families in Uvalde. And I used to say that all they had to do was look forward to, that all they had was to look forward to was some duller sense of pain. And I fear that that's the same thing that you have to look forward to. I know that some of those families went to go see you on the second and the third day. And they are there for you. And those little angels are in heaven now 3 years in a few months. And it is the most awesome and horrific thing that happened to you. I just wanted to say that for my part, I am sorry. My hope is that we can make sure that none of these tragedies ever happen again, and we fix what's broken. So thank you for coming again today. And I assure you when I tell you this, we love you. We all cried for your children. And I have a little girl that is, her mom is crying today because tomorrow we're going to put her in UT Austin. And I know one of you had a little girl that was going to start at UT Austin tomorrow or next week as well. It's not lost on me, your pain and your suffering. We love you very much, and we only hope that we can do better. Thank you.
Senator Blanco, what purpose?
Speak in favor of the bill.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor for entrusting me with the responsibility of serving on this important committee. And Senator Perry, you know, you've got a tough exterior. I don't think anyone in this body would deny that. But I also know that they wouldn't deny that you're a man of deep faith. And I want to thank you for your leadership, your compassion, and for your determination to turn grief into action. Members, I rise today with a heavy heart, but also with this profound sense of responsibility. Not only as a legislator, but as a father to a little girl. And no parent should ever have to endure the unimaginable pain of losing a child. And yet, that is the grief carried every day by the families in the gallery today. By those in the gallery, and also for those that couldn't make it today, because there's some that couldn't make it. After the floods on July 4th, on the morning of our committee hearing in Kerrville, I joined my colleagues, Senator Lois Colcourse and Senator Jose Menendez, to tour the Camp Mystic area. And in the stillness of the morning, walking through those grounds where joy and laughter should have been filling the air, we instead felt the deep weight of tragedy and sorrow. And Senator Colcourse and I were commenting and reflecting on that. And what we saw there will never leave us. It'll never leave us. The debris, the destroyed cabins, the empty beds, the water line 30 feet high in the nearby trees. And yesterday in committee, we heard the most powerful, heartbreaking testimony imaginable. The voices of you all, the parents, who lost their little babies. And members, their words were filled with unbearable pain, but also with extraordinary grace. with extraordinary strength, extraordinarily love. So to the parents, I say this: we grieve with you. We carry your daughters in our hearts, and we honor them with this work. Your strength in the face of unimaginable loss humbles this body. And the courage that it took from you all to come before us to relive your worst day, to relive your nightmare, so that other children might be spared. That courage has inspired this legislation. Now, this bill can't bring your daughters back, but it's going to ensure that their lives carry meaning, that it carries meaning far beyond their years. Their legacy, your little girl's legacy, will be one of protecting children, of saving lives, and of sparing other families the heartbreak that you will live each and every single day. As a father, I cannot stand here imagining my own daughter in their place. The thought alone shakes me to my core. Yet, your ability to take the deepest sorrow and to take that sorrow and to transform it into advocacy is a gift to every single Texan, to every single Texas family. You have reminded all of us in this legislature of why we serve: to protect families, to safeguard children, to use every single power that we have to prevent tragedy from happening again. We cannot undo what happened on July 4th. But this legislation is going to stand as a living legacy to those little girls that we lost. Their names, their lives, their light will forever shine through this law. So to the loving families, the parents, thank you. Thank you for loving your daughters so deeply. Thank you for honoring their lives with your courage. Thank you for giving greater meaning to their memory by ensuring that no parent has to walk the road you are walking. And we always carry their memory with us as we carry this work forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Blanco. Senator Campbell, I know you cannot, you're going to try to stand? All right, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm okay, I think. I stand with the Senate for this bill that sets in place plans to hopefully prevent any tragedy like this to happen again. I don't have the words to express the profound sorrow that you've had to experience. We will continue to pray. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? before I recognize you, Senator Perry, on final and to have the family stand, I'm going to gavel the bill with this gavel for you. And I'll present it to the families. And at some point, there will be a memorial. And this gavel will have a plate on it with Heavens 27. And you'll use it as you think best. Because this night will always be a part of the history of the Senate. I said to some of you when we first met, and some of you I met at different times, that my focus and our focus was to treat you like family to the best of our ability, not to try to intrude into your life or not to try to do too much, but to treat you as we would want to be treated. And as Senator West said, one of our senators, Senator King, lost a son this year. So know that you are our extended family. You all have my cell number now. So anytime you need your senator or you need us, we're here. Senator Blanco, you used the word grace, and I was going to use that because the one thing besides courage that you've shown, as he and others spoke about, having the courage to come and testify, which I watched and I know it was so hard, you've been so gracious to us. You've treated us so graciously. In a way, you've inspired us to do our best. And we're all better for that. And courage to the two families who lost your daughters who were counselors. They were old enough and big enough, they could have saved themselves. And they stayed. They stayed. So to those two counselors, I don't know that we have an award for courage in Texas, but if we don't, we need to have one. Because those two 18-year-olds did what Scripture says. You give your life to try to save another. If they were in the Army, they'd be Medal of Honor winners. Senator Perry, you're recognized on final.
Could have all the parents and guardians and associates and friends and family members stand in honor of reading of the 27 names. Some of these excerpts came from meeting with the family, and some came from their obituaries and some of their things that we're reading. Yeah, if all the Senate would stand in their honor, I'd appreciate that. Hannah and Rebecca Lawrence, twins from Dallas. Hannah's heart was enormous. She always had lots of questions about people in need and how she could help. Rebecca Lawrence. Rebecca loved animals, all animals, but especially big cats. Syl Stewart. I have a picture of her. That's the first picture I received. And she's still the girl missing that we can't stop searching for. But the freckle-faced big grin on that picture, from my interpretation, not meeting, but seeing Mom that day and Dad later, it was clear to me it was saying, here I am, world, come take me on. I could just tell she was a Spitfire. Margaret Bellows, Houston. She loved family, friends, pets, anyone and everyone, everywhere. Mary Grace Baker, Beaumont. When she would spot a teacher, a friend, or their parents in the wild, she would bounce towards you until she gave you a hug so grand that it would nearly knock you over. Blakely McClory of Houston. She wanted to become a veterinarian. Tragically, she had lost a dad and an uncle in the spring, and camp was supposed to be her healing for her. Tragedy abounds for that child, but she's in a whole lot better place and way today. Elise Lula Peck, Dallas. She She made everyone feel important, both her two-legged and four-legged friends alike. Mary Kate Jacoby, Houston, was tiny but mighty. She came into this world early and loved deeply. Renee Smaskrala, Ingram, was so joyful and loved being surrounded by friendships, faith, and the beauty of nature. Wynn Naylor, Dallas, loved God, her community, and the outdoors. Kellyanne Lytle, San Antonio, loved school, enjoyed learning, respected her teachers, and adored her sweet friends. Hadley Hannah, as her dad said, she would sneak up on you with sneak attack hugs from Dallas. Hadley loved school and was so excited to start third grade. Sarah Marsh from Alabama, she was fiercely loyal and so much fun. Janie Hunt, Dallas, she loved to tell jokes, she loved church and learning about her Christian heritage and faith. Lenny McCown, Austin, she was proud of her dyslexia and reminded her reading group that if you're dyslexic, that means you're super smart. When she saw a friend struggling to read, she put her hand on their back and said, "It's okay, we can read it together." Lana Bonner, Dallas. She envisioned opening her own animal rescue center with her sister Scarlett, confidently handling security. Molly DeWitt, Houston. She was endlessly creative, a vibrant artistic spirit who loved to draw and design like her mom. Ellen Getton, Houston. She gave every person a hug and would not let anyone leave her presence without a huge one. Lainey Landry, Houston. Her commitment to her faith was unwavering. Mary Barrett Stevens, Austin. She loved playing Rumacube and cards with her family. Abby Pohl, Austin. A loyal friend with a kind heart, possessing a deep empathy beyond her years. Lucy Dillon, Houston. Corgi lover and a devoted Houston Rockets fan. Virginia Hollis, Belleville. She loved dressing up and tea parties, was a composer, which we had the privilege of hearing her last composing. Margaret Sheedy, Houston. Loved fiercely competitive games of Uno and the nightly review of the day's highs and lows at the dinner table with her family. Greta Toronzo, Houston. She delighted in helping her younger children and often went out of her way to include and uplift those around her. The two counselors, the heroes, the selfless sacrifice. Chloe Childress, Bubbling counselor from Houston, was so excited to begin her freshman year at the University of Texas. She eagerly anticipated being pre-med and becoming a doctor. Catherine Ferruzzo, Bubbling counselor, Houston, was thrilled to have been accepted at the University of Texas, ultimately planned to become a special education teacher. To the families, there's been a whole lot said tonight, as my colleagues so eloquently and articulate and can always do. I want to remind you of something I've reminded you of multiple times that we've talked. You've acknowledged your strengths comes from your kiddos, and it will be with you forever. And don't ever, ever forget to lean on that in your bad days. But what you've done for me was your testimony and witness of faith in action. It is my prayer that you continue to have the courage of Daniel, the strength of Samson, the wisdom of Solomon, the heart of David, and the patience of Job, and all of God's grace that you need plus more. For that, Mr. President, I move final passage of Heavens 27 Safety Camp Act.
I cannot make a motion, but would someone make a motion to put everything that's been said in writing so it's in the journal forever, Senator Betancourt?
Mr. President, I wish to make a motion to have all that is said tonight on Senate Bill 1 put in the journal.
No objection. Motion adopted. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall, Hinojosa of Nueces, Hinojosa of Hidalgo, Huffman, Hughes, Johnson, King, Colcourse, Menendez, Middleton, Miles, Nichols, Parker, Paxton, Perry, Schwartner, Sparks, West, Zaffarini.
There being 28 ayes and no votes, Senate Bill 1 has passed in the honor of the 27. Thank you, members. Thank you, Charles. President's desk is clear. Any announcements? Chair recognizes Dean of the Senate for a highly privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Not highly, for a privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate recess until 10 a.m. Friday, August 22nd. Thank you.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Senate stands in recess until 10 a.m. Friday, August 22nd. Thank you, members.